Sorry, that was a little loud. Good evening. My name is Deborah Koenigsberg, and I'm the Vice President on the board of the Dallas Jewish Historical Society, and I'd like to welcome each and every one of you here tonight. We are so happy with your support and sponsorship of all of our events. Tonight is going to be a wonderful one. You know us all as a small gem of an organization that serves this community by preserving Jewish history. We honor our history, and we also take the time to spotlight today's history makers, as we've done this year, which has been wonderful. Tonight, you're going to hear about all of our accomplishments this year, and you will have a short video by our president, who could not be here today, Charley Rosen. And at this moment, I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful executive director, Deborah Polsky. Let's give her a hand.
Thank you. Yes, Stuart is away on business, unfortunately, but we do have a few words from him.
I'm sorry I'm talking to you in person tonight, as I am on a business trip in Canada. Tonight, Deborah will show you what the Dallas Jewish Historical Society has accomplished this year. It amazes me how much we do with the little resources we have, but as you will see, our mission and impact on the Dallas Jewish community is very visible and very important. This year, and frankly every year, couldn't happen without the dedication of our staff, led by our Executive Director, Deborah Polsky. Our Office Administrator Extraordinaire, Jenny Clays, makes sure that everything gets done in a quality and expeditious manner. And we are really excited about our new archivist, Jessica Schneider, who is already making a positive impact in just a few months being here. Thank you, staff, for everything you do day in and day out. Thank you to our outgoing board members, Cliff Freeman, Case Phillips, and Lori Judson. Although you won't be on the board anymore, I personally appreciate your contributions to the society. A special thank you to May Siebel, who will be stepping off the board after many years of tireless service and as a board member, officer, and just someone who we could always count on whenever we needed her wisdom to work. I could go on about May, but I can see some of you are already nodding off. Yes, I can see you through this computer. There's one person who isn't with us tonight in person, but I know he's with us in spirit. Last month, we lost Jim Schwartz, our immediate past president, to cancer. Jim's contributions to the Dallas Jewish Historical Society are immeasurable. It's under his leadership that the DJHS is where it is today. Those of us who worked with him, not only when he was doing the Historical Society business, but in other endeavors, whether they be through his work, his passion for music, or just hanging with him, knew him as a real niche. He always made you feel better and be better at anything you did. His mentorship and friendship are something I will always treasure, and his legacy with the Dallas Jewish Historical Society will last for many, many years. I am dedicating this year to Jim in his memory. I will miss you, my friend. Well, it's almost dinner time in Calgary, and that means I better get another Molson before the hotel bar runs out. Please enjoy a great presentation by Charley Rosen, and visit our website often to check out what we're up to. If you aren't currently a member of the Dallas Jewish Historical Society, join us today. I know Jim would appreciate it. I'll see you all when I get back in town.
We'll talk to you in the closet. So just a brief PowerPoint presentation to give you an idea of the kinds of things that we've been doing this year and what we're looking forward to in the future. Tonight, of course, we have Charley Rosen, and I'll introduce him in just a minute. Our mission is to preserve and collect visual, audio, written materials that document the history of the Dallas Jewish community. That's basically it. We are the memory keepers. We are the people who hold on to the artifacts and arts and voices of the people who make up this Jewish community. Our vision is to help present and future generations connect with Jewish Dallas. We're not just here as an archive, we're actually here as an outreach organization to help people connect to their roots. Stuart always says if you can get our young adults to connect to their roots here, maybe they'll stay in Dallas instead of moving somewhere else, or at least come home occasionally. This is our board of directors. I won't read it for you. Our archive serves as a repository for this entire Jewish community of Dallas. Our holdings include materials from individuals, from businesses, from organizations, many which are no longer in existence. We have, the cornerstone of a synagogue that doesn't exist anymore. We've got scrapbooks and videos and photographs and documents, more than you can imagine, that tell the story. This is what our archive looked like in the beginning, and this is what it looks like today. We have a beautiful climate-controlled vault that Jessica takes good care of, where we hold all of our collections. We also have our oral history collection in the vault. Currently, we have over 600 oral history interviews that date back to 1971. And there actually will be an article about our oral history project in the Texas Historical Foundation's monthly magazine. These are just a few of the people in our collection. We have some ongoing goals. The biggest one is the digitization of our entire archive. That's the goal we're working towards for 2021, which would be our 50th year. And it entails a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of money to actually photograph, turn into digital files, everything that we've got. Whether it's taking photographs or documents or even the large pieces of things like plaques and menorahs and anything you can imagine. And making a digital file so that people will be able to access our collections through our website. To jumpstart our genealogy group, we had a good start this year, and we hope that will continue in conjunction with the Dallas Genealogical Society. Lador Vador, What's Your Story, is a program we started several years ago with after-school religious school students to help them explore their genealogy as they're studying Jewish history, and we'll be restarting that program this year. And also our oral history volunteer programs. We're always looking for volunteers to do oral history interviews, and we're always looking for volunteers to have their oral histories done. Let's see, I missed a couple. Host accession archive collections, that's really what I talked about. We'll have ways that people can access our collection on the website through a specific portal that makes it easy to find and search for items. And last but not least, by any stretch, is securing adequate funding. That's the conundrum for any nonprofit, for any organization, is how do we secure funding that will take us not just through this year, but through the coming years. And that's one of the major projects that we're going to tackle this year, is to really look at our funding sources and see how we can be forward-thinking rather than just looking at today. Our ongoing goals include making people aware of the oral history program and making them available, engaging people with the archive. As I said, we see ourselves as an outreach organization, and we believe that in outreach through articles, reaching out to organizations to help preserve their history, to synagogues, many of whom have no archive, they just have boxes full of stuff somewhere, and bringing the expertise of our staff to the community through a speakers bureau. We're always happy to go out and speak to groups and tell you about what we're doing and what we know about the history of Jewish Dallas. And all you have to do is invite us and we're ready to come. And last but not least, again, financial stability. We've done a tremendous amount of professional development this year. This is one of the things that I feel is important for our staff. And we actually, the three of us just went to a workshop last week on preparing a case statement to help us define who we are and what we need so that we can share those goals with other people. We do a lot of collaborative efforts. Our biggest program this year in collaboration with Dallas Heritage Village, Black Dallas, Remembering Black Dallas, and the Dallas Mexican American Historical League was an exhibit that was up for 3 months at Dallas Heritage Village, where we provided materials and narration and volunteers for the Jewish house at Dallas Heritage Village, known as the Bloom House. We also do our best to participate in our community, which is the JCC and the Federation, whether it's Senior Expo or the Film Fest or Book Fest or the Hanukkah Hoopla. We're always there with a booth trying to offer something and make people aware of who we are. We have a good booth at the Dallas Coaster Chili Cook-Off. We are robbed every year. We definitely should win. People come up afterwards and tell us that you should have won. We have partnered with Ringy Stanley to create a new program called the Network for the Advancement and Perpetuation of Jewish Culture. And it's just coming into its own this year, and it will be a network throughout Jewish organizations in Dallas, but also around the country to allow people to have a site through our website where they can connect. One of our most exciting projects has been working with the Blue House, and you'll see more about that in just a minute. These are the programs that we've had this year. Scanning days, twice. I think that was supposed to say lecture series, but that's okay. Our genealogy workshop, and we have an upcoming historical Jewish Dallas bus tour that we're going to try and do at least once a year. We engaged a new archivist this year. That is our big achievement for the year. We spent a long time looking, 6 months actually, before we found the right person, and she was definitely the right person for us. We've done oral history interviews. We have a volunteer who's been recording letters from Ellis and May Teich to one another during their World War II years while he was in service. And we've been working with a lot of other groups. One of our board members has gone to speak several times to Temple Shalom, and I also spoke to Shema Emmanuel's genealogy group. So we're always happy to do those kinds of things. Fundraising speaks for itself. Our biggest event of the year was our One Story at a Time event. It's held every other year, and in the opposite years we have the Ann Sephora Humanitarian Award event, and we did very well. We were lucky that the Tobolowsky extended family allowed us to honor them this year, and we had a fun event. I think everybody had a good time. and we did raise over $80,000. This is our year in review, and I'm not going to expect you to read this because it's probably too small, but we will post this on our website. And it's just a little recap of the kinds of things that we're involved in throughout the year. Whether it's our lecture series, our participation in programs at the J, our participation with Federation, through Super Sunday or marketing or anything else. And of course, every year we want to wish Walter Levy happy birthday. He just turned 96, or yeah, 96. And so please take a chance to read this at your leisure on our website, djhs.org. These are some photos from the Tobolowsky event. This is a list of our acquisitions, and again, I'm not going to read this aloud to you, but we've had some wonderful acquisitions this year, many of which came from sources that we didn't expect. We had a extensive collection that came from Miriam and Al Creamer, which just sort of walked into our door one day and as they were downsizing. And it's a marvelous collection. Many things we sent to the Yiddish Book Center because it was more appropriate for it to be there. Those of you who know Miriam know her Yiddish background. And we have a lot more digital images that were donated by members of the Tobolowsky family to help us for the event and to make it part of our event. We also were lucky to get the Sabre Klein collection, which is yearbooks and programs from BBYO District 7 from 1963 to 1995. You may not know that her husband was the district director for many years, and Sabre hung on to it and saved it for us. A woman named Susan Earls reached out to us to donate items from her father's 25-year history with Sanger Brothers, and it really is a great addition to our Sanger's collection. We have a number of items already, and most recently, just still this week, thanks to a little bird who put a note in her ear, we received the collection of Adeline Harrison. And that's a very special connection. As the first Jewish mayor and the first woman mayor of the city of Dallas, that's really a coup for us to have that collection. We're very excited about it. We have a wonderful volunteer program, which Jessica is in charge of. She's constantly recruiting new volunteers and teaching them different tasks that help us in the archive, as well as transcribing oral histories or becoming oral history interviewers. And they do a lot of different projects. And so far this year, we think we have over 800 volunteer hours served, which we're pretty proud of. We think that's a lot for a little agency. Looking forward is continuing our digitization system, bringing it up to date by the year 2021, so everything will be online. Establishing an online exhibit space so that not only do we have exhibits out in the hallway and possibly some traveling exhibits, but also exhibits online that people can walk through, essentially. And we hope to complete the digitization. We have over 600 letters of the Ellis and May Teich collection. They're World War II correspondents, so we're hoping to have that digitized by this time next year. It's a lofty goal with 600. That's 600 letters, not 600 pages. Many of them are 3 and 4 pages long. And beyond that, in 2021, we turn 50 years old, and we hope to have a big celebration, and we hope you'll be with us.
Yes. Okay. So I have the proud pleasure to introduce our new board members for our new year. We have Jeff Epstein. If you're here present, please stand. Thank you, Jeff. We have Myra Moskowitz. Yay, Myra. Chip Muchin. Is Chip here?
He's not.
Mitch Myers. Alex Ray. And we have Debbie Shulkin. This is a proud moment to welcome you all to the board of directors, to our board. I look forward to working with each and every one of you. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker tonight, Charley Rosen. Charley is an author and former basketball coach who previously worked as an NBA analyst for FoxSports.com and whose work has appeared on FanRagSports.com and HoopsHype.com, among many other places. A native of the Bronx, Rosen is the author of 21 sports books, including Sugar Michael Ray Richardson. Sugar Michael Ray Richardson, got it. 80s Excess and the NBA, Crazy Basketball, A Life in and Out of Bounds, and his newest book, The Chosen Game, A Jewish Basketball History, and has co-authored 2 books with NBA coach Phil Jackson. I'll let him tell you more about himself and his experiences. Please join me in welcoming Charley.
Did you play basketball?
No, I was actually an elephant jockey. Yes, I was. Is this okay? Can everybody hear me? First of all, I'd like to thank Deborah for thinking of me and bringing a Yankee down here, but I told her a lot of ex-Yankees at least down here. And I'd like to thank all of you for being here. You look like a hoop. Do you play basketball? You?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Look at that body.
Look, kind of move like that. Let me start with something real and unpleasant before it's in the book. There's a basketball player named Omri Caspi, an Israeli, who started the season with the Golden State Warriors, but then he got hurt, and they cut him, and he's now back in Israel, but he played in the NBA for about 5 or 6 years. He wasn't the kind of shooter that they needed. He was a playmaker, and he could run and run and run, but he couldn't shoot that well. He started his career with the Seattle Supersonics. And this happened 2 years ago when he was still with Seattle. And since he's gone, there are no Jewish basketball players in the NBA. He was the last one. Before the season, they had these huge posters of the players that they post all over Seattle. You know, big headshots of players to try advertisements to try and get fans to buy season's tickets. And since he was a holdover there was a big picture of him. Seattle. You think Seattle would be, I don't know, a different kind of city? And he woke up one morning and there were swastikas all over his pictures. So that's just a reminder of where we are. You know, it's a wonderful community and, you know, and all that stuff, but things have changed and a lot of things have not changed. And I think we still have to be mindful of certain things that happen and are still happening in this country. That's my sermon, as far as this book is concerned. Basketball was invented in 1891 in Springfield, Massachusetts, in a YMCA training school by a Dr. James Naismith. I call him the original Dr. J. And what happened was he had these bunch of guys, and when the weather turned bad, you know, when the weather was nice, they played football and soccer, and they beat each other up and be all bloody and broken bones and everything. But then winter came, they had to play indoors. And it made for even more mayhem because it was close quarters. It was blood all over the place, and these guys, and they loved it, you know, the young kids, they loved beating each other up. So he decided that he has to invent a game, something to kind of calm things down. So he invented the game of basketball. One morning, he posted a list of the rules on the door, like Martin Luther did, you know. Probably just as important. He posted on the door, and he got the janitor to come up with 2 peach baskets. And there was a track overlooking the court. And he had the janitor nail the peach basket to the bottom of the track. And guess how high the track was? 10 feet. That's why basketball is 10 feet. I tend to go off a little bit, so indulge me a little bit. On many of the things, I was on the 61 USA basketball team in the Mackie B games, where I met my first wife. She was on the swimming team. She was a better swimmer than I was a basketball player. But we got married anyway. What else? I had 24 books, with 25th coming out soon. For many years I coached in the Continental Basketball Association, the CBA. I was Phil Jackson's assistant for 3 years, and I was a head coach for 6 years. One of those years, I was a head coach in Rockford, Illinois, and Phil was, who's my best friend, who was the head coach of Chicago Bulls. So I used to come to his games, and he used to come to my games. And when I go up there, I go into the coach's room after the game. I knew all the coaches and, you know, blah, blah, blah. So one day when I was in the coach's room after a game, some guy walks in with this, I don't know what you call it. It's not a briefcase, made out of gold. It looked like it was gold. And he came in. Who is this guy? What is this guy? He was James Naismith's great-grandson. And what he had in this thing here, he opened it up, was the original notes, rules that were posted up on the door. And there was a big blade of grass, and he was looking to sell it. I think it was like $2 million what he was asking to raise some money. And a little piece of it was sticking out under the edge of the glass, and I asked him if I could touch it. And he said yes. So that's maybe the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. Well, don't let my wife I touched the 10 Commandments, the second 10 Commandments. So anyway, he invented this game, and they played it, and you weren't allowed to dribble. You couldn't run with the ball, you could only pass, so he thought that would reduce the physical contact, which it did, but not totally. They had 9 players on the side, and they played to score 1-0. We don't know, we know who scored the basket, but we don't know how he scored it. This is just before Christmas of 1891. So then everybody went on their Christmas vacation, and they kind of spread the news of this new game, basketball, 2 words it was in those days, to places where they lived. And a couple of these guys lived in New York, so the game came to New York. And at that time, there were a lot of Jewish immigrants on the Lower East Side in New York City. And first generation Jewish kids, second generation, they just picked this game up. It was a quick way to become Americanized, even though it was invented by a Canadian, Naismith. Here's this game's kind of unformed, the rules were still kind of changing, and they could kind of get in on the ground floor. It was easy to play. There are no baseball fields or football fields on the Lower East Side. Everything is all packed, and, but there were gyms. And you didn't need football helmets or baseball bats. And, you play in your underwear, basically. And get a ball, and there you go. And hang, nail up 2 peach baskets, and you can play. By the way, it took them about 10 years to figure out to cut a hole in the bottom. Have a guy climb a ladder, and then they invented a basket. You figured right, and with a handle hanging, you pull the handle out and blow up. I don't know if the Jews came up with that idea. It would surprise me. So the game kind of spread to New York City, and all these kids like, here it is. And a lot of Jewish organizations picked up the game. YMHA, which wasn't that old at the end of the 19th century. Labor unions, socialist clubs, and they thought it was great, get these kids off the street. Instead of stealing apples on Delancey Street, they would come and play basketball, and it was great, so, and a lot of what these kids did, if they couldn't afford a ball, they'd wrap a bunch of rags up, put tape around it, take a hanger, open up a wire hanger, nail it to a telephone pole, and that was their basketball. That's how I had one of those in my room when I was a kid. And that's how they played. And of course the game spread in other places, but because the gymnasiums in New York City and the Lower East Side were small, the Jews, when they played, they developed a certain kind of game. Everything was crowded, so there's a lot of passing, a lot of moving, and work the ball and be patient and that kind of stuff. When the game spread out to the Midwest, where there was lots of space, there was running and jumping and running wild and stuff like that. The New York game was different. It was a little different. And it kind of still exists today. San Antonio kind of plays the same kind of, U.B. Brown, famous NBA coach, he's now a announcer. He just hurt his knee, he ran into a table or something. I've known him for a long time. He calls it Jew ball. And he says it's still the basis of movement, everybody moves, passing quick, sharing the ball, movement. Golden State plays a lot like that. So the settlement houses, the Henry Street Settlement House, and most importantly, the University Settlement House, that was the big one, where basketball really took whole. And they had youth groups. They had one group that were called Busy Izzies, and they were like the best team in New York. They played, whatever other Ys or whatever. They were the best team in New York. And for that reason, for the first 10, 15, maybe 20 years of the 20th century, the best basketball players in the country were Jews. The best. And about 80% of them came from New York City. Some from Philadelphia, but most from New York City. And it kept on going that way for a while. And the colleges in New York City, City College, NYU, they had, these kids went there, and they were like the top ranked schools. While this was going on, so these guys played college ball, and they played in the city, they played at NYU, and these kids were so good that a lot of Catholic schools recruited them. So they had Jews playing in Notre Dame. In the 30s, the St. John's Wonder Five started 4 Jews. And I think there was 2 or 3 games in 3 years. And also at the time, there were these leagues. There were 1 million pro leagues. The North Atlantic League, the Eastern League, most centered in the Northeast, all over the place. Kingston, Pennsylvania, fly-by-night leagues. Some of them didn't last. And you look up the history, which I did, and they have the leading scorers, and about 80% of the leading scorers of all those leagues were Jews. Jews from New York. And these leagues were pretty loose. You play a half for one team, and then the other team would give you more money, and you switch uniforms for the other team the second half. But that's the way life was. And among the early Jewish basketball players was a guy named Barney Sedgwick, who was 5'4", and Marty Friedman. And the game was different in those days. A lot of the games were played in cages, either surrounded by chicken wire or ropes or something. And in those days, basketball players were called cagers. And one of the reasons that they had cages was to protect the players. And one group of players that really needed protection were the Jews, when they played various other teams, so it prevented people from throwing things at them and stuff like that. And the ball was always in bounds. Never went out of bounds, bounce off the screen, and guys would smash each other into the screen. And the referees stayed out of bounds, and they threw the ball, and then they go get each other. But what happens is you got near the sideline. There was a couple of places in Brooklyn where a lot of anti-Semitism at the time. If they got too close to the cages, they get stuck with a hat pin or burnt with a cigar or something like that. So it was dangerous. It was dangerous in those days. So one of the earliest players was a guy named Nat Holman, who probably was the greatest basketball player in the country, and in the teens and the 1920s, probably. He was also, I had some dealings with him years ago in a book I wrote. He has since passed. He is also most certainly one of the most obnoxious players. I think he was born on the Lower East Side, I'm not sure, but he spoke with a phony British accent. And he was a star of the best touring team called the Original Celtics. He was a star of the team. And people used to come out and boo him, and he strut around, you know, he was just so good. You couldn't touch it, just really, really arrogant. And the game was different in those days also. You called fouls, and they kept track of the fouls. At the end of the game, this team had 20 foul shots, this team had 14 foul shots. And you picked somebody to shoot the foul shots after the game. And Holman used to shoot the foul shots, so he was always the leading scorer. So in addition to touring with the Celtics, he started coaching at City College and really developed that program into one of the best in the country with 95% Jews. And they were the best in the country, no question about it. It was so good. I'm kind of bouncing around here a little bit, you know, looks like the name pops into my head. I'll catch up later, I think. In 1951, the City College team won the National Invitational Tournament and the NCAA tournament in the same year, which doesn't happen anymore. No teams play both, and both those tournaments were played in sequential weeks at Madison Square Garden. And in both of the finals of both of those tournaments, City College beat Bradley. 3 starters were Jewish, a City College team. The main guy off the bench, Norm Major, was Jewish. And they started 2 black guys from City College. And they were the darlings of New York. You know, CCNY was like the Harvard of New York City. And you know, more than 50%, 55, 60% of the student body was Jewish. And the city just adopted these kids, this team. They were so successful. They were like, you know, the sons of garment workers, of you know, grandchildren, great-grandchildren of slaves. They were, you know, the salt of the earth, the common, and the city just embraced it. But there was a history around the country that started after World War II of players getting involved, college players getting involved with gamblers. And either throwing games or a math teacher in Connecticut involved something called a point spread, which means you have Team A and Team B. Team A is like way better than Team B. So if you want to bet on the game, who are you going to bet on? You know, everybody's going to bet on Team A, or maybe get 100-to-1 odds or something to bet on Team B. So this math teacher, a high school math teacher, he came up with a gimmick. Spot, for betting purposes only, spot Team B the number of points. Spot him in a game where it's really, one team's far better, spot him, spot Team B, 20 points. Usually it's a half, 20 and a half, so games don't end in a tie. So if Team A only wins by 19 points, and you bet on Team B, you win. You don't lose the game, you win the game. You know, Team A wins the game, but the gamblers who bet on Team B win. So the gamblers found a way to manipulate this whole business. So if City College was favored by 4.5 points against somebody, they paid these kids $1,000 to make sure they won by 4 points, 3 points, 2 points, so that whoever bet on the underdog would win. And this was going on in New York City. It was going on in a lot of places. LIU also mostly Jewish players, had a long tradition of doing this. There were players, high school players, who went to LIU to make money. So this just kept going and kept going, and finally, on my 10th birthday, January 18th, 1951, I was 10 years old, it exploded into the news, and people were like freaked out. Their boys, their favorite, they're in league with gamblers? How could this be? You know, World War II was won and done, the bad guys are defeated, everybody's good guys now. These kids are taking money with gamblers, from gamblers. Turned out that players from Kentucky, in New York, City College, NYU, and LIU were players, key players who were in league with gamblers. Toledo University, Bradley, University of Kentucky, they were also doing business, as they said. But players at St. John's University were also involved. A guy named Al McGuire, does that name mean anything to anybody? He was the connection between the gamblers. Most of the gamblers involved were Jews. The ones in Kentucky, the ones in Toledo, some of the ones in New York. And Al McGuire was the guy who made the connections between the gamblers and the players in the city. The City College kids got arrested. They had played a game in Philadelphia. The train pulled into Penn Station, the FBI got on board, they told Nat Holman, who was the coach, we're gonna arrest some of your kids for gambling. Holman says, I know nothing about it, do what you gotta do, you know, which is nonsense. He knew. He knew. I've spoken to players. I played against a lot of guys who played Floyd Lane and Roman. I played against those guys. They said Holman knew. They got these guys, questioned them one at a time. They said, you know, Al Roth says that you and Roman, you were the one who arranged the whole thing. Ed Roman says that you were the one that arranged it, and all these kids broke. Meanwhile, the St. John's guys, Catholic University, they had recordings of Al McGuire on the phone talking to gamblers. And the recordings were on the old 78 records. They hadn't been transcribed yet. The records were sitting on a desk in the DA's office. The DA was Frank Hogan, graduate of Holy Cross. The word came down from the Bishop of New York, leave the Catholic schools out of it. Somebody in the DA's office knocked those records off the table, they all broke. They had pictures of the St. John's guys having dinner with gamblers at Copa. When the St. John's guys were questioned by Hogan and his men, they came in, all of them, with priests and lawyers. And did you guys do anything? No. Okay, goodbye. So the Jewish kids and the black kids were the ones who got caught, for the most part, and got busted, and ruined their lives. Because the NBA wanted to take the City College kids and bring them into the NBA. But that was gone. They couldn't do that. And that was the turning point. Up until then, 1950, 51, Jews dominated basketball. Jews dominated basketball. But after that, things started to change. Blacks were admitted into the NBA, and it became a way for black kids to get out of their culture. Let me go back to the Harlem Globetrotters. You've all heard of the Harlem Globetrotters, okay? Harlem Globetrotters was started by a guy who's about this big named Abe Saperstein. He was this big, about this round. Started in Chicago. He got these black guys together and eventually called them the Harlem Globetrotters, so it looked like they were all over, or, you know, they were world travelers. The first game they played was someplace near Chicago, and they made like $30 or something like that. But it just spread and spread and spread. And they would beat everybody to the point where nobody wanted to play. So then they started doing all kinds of tricks. You know, have a ball on a rubber band, shoot, the ball comes back, and they're spinning and doing all this, you know, all this kind of stuff. They were forced to do that to clown around to get other teams. And Saperstein had no respect for them, treated them like dirt, cheated them out of money, used their images. They had a cartoon series representing, said didn't get any money. And eventually it was like a rebellion against him, and he was kind of out. But he started. Saperstein started. Let's see. Eddie Gottlieb, another famous, even more important Jewish figure. He started arranging boxing matches, baseball games. He started doing basketball games. And he organized a team called the SPAS in Philadelphia, South Philadelphia Hebrew Association. That was their team, all Jews. And they toured, and they toured, and they toured, and they beat everybody. Then the NBA started. The first season was 46-47. I wrote a book about that called The First Tip-Off. And all the owners of the teams also owned hockey teams. And they got into basketball and they owned arenas as a way to fill the arenas. But they knew nothing about basketball. And they elected the president and commissioner, Maurice Podoloff, also Jewish, who knew nothing about basketball. So they had this meeting, and these guys were talking about the rules, and they were hockey. So yeah, knock guys down, smash guys, fans love that, you know, like hockey games. And Gottlieb said, no. He's the only guy there who knew anything about basketball. So he was really the father of the NBA, which started out as the Basketball Association of America. And then in '49, I believe, it merged with another National Basketball League and became the NBA. So here's this new league, first season, 46-47. Where did they get players from? They couldn't have a draft because what order would they pick, you know, if they're on the teams? Some teams decided to bring in the best professionals, guys who had played in this professional league, that professional league, and bring those guys in. Other teams, their philosophy was to get the best college players in the country. Some teams, their philosophy was bringing the best local players. And that was the next philosophy. So like 8 out of the 10 players were Jews. They were the best players in the area. They were known to New York fans, you know, City College, LU, you know. Unfortunately, they wanted Joe Lemchick to coach the team, but he was coaching St. John's. He had 1 year left at St. John's. So they needed somebody else to fill his spot. I always forget the guy's name. He was a drunk. He was a hero at Manhattan College. You raising your hand, you know his name? Yes? No? And he was an anti-Semite. And he knew he was only there for a year, so he had this anti-Semite coaching 8 Jews. The first basket in the history of the NBA was scored by a Jew. Anybody know who it was? Ozzie Sheckman. Ozzie Sheckman. I actually interviewed him once, a wonderful guy. A game in Toronto. It was the first game played, and he scored the first basket. Scored by a Jew. So the Knicks were kind of doing okay. And this coach, I'll call you all up about 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll reread the book. Actually, I've written 3 more books since this, so a lot of the specifics have gone out of my mind. So they faced anti-Semitism on the road, which is pretty mild by us standards. For example, there was a team called the St. Louis Bombers, one of the original teams. And when they played in St. Louis, fans would yell, "Hey, Abe, pass the ball to Abe." And that was considered heavy-duty anti-Semitism in those days, right? Or they'd start to sing "The Sidewalks of New York" or something, which is also, that's the way it was in those days. So, Neil Cohalan. That was his name.
That was around the time our got into the league.
That's another story.
That's
That's another story. I knew Red. That's another story. Yeah, good thing you reminded me. I'll talk about that. So Cohalan goes to the owner of the Garden, who's the owner of the Knicks, Ned Irish, who also didn't like Jews. Could you tell it by his name? Maybe I shouldn't say that. I didn't say that. Erase that. So they decided to get rid of the Jews. Conveniently, Sheckman suffered a bad injury. He was out for the year. And they just traded 3 or 4 or 5 guys. They just got rid of them. One guy, Hank Rosenstein, they traded to Philadelphia, which was Gottlieb's team, which was made up mostly of ex-players who played for the Spas. It also featured Joe Folks, who somebody tipped him. He played Marines. That's another story. But they were mostly Jews, and so a team coached by the Jews and featuring mostly Jews won the first championship. And Rosenstein came to that team, and he was the catalyst. And he was the one who really turned them into a championship team. The guy that the Knicks just gave away. Red Auerbach was not a bad basketball player. He played in Brooklyn, I don't remember where. He went to George Washington University. He was okay. Then he went into the Army. He played a little in the Army, but mostly he coached. And the Army teams, all the services were great teams. All these guys were drafted. Guys are smaller than nowadays. There's a 6'6" limit, which is why I was 4F. Because it would take me longer to dig a foxhole, and the shoes wouldn't fit. Although the Naval Academy made an exception for David Robinson. He was 6'10" or something. Don't get me started on him. He had no heart at all. Popovich says things about him that are not publicized. So Auerbach barges into Mike Uline, who owned the Washington Caps, and said, and everybody's, where are we going to get players? Where are we going to get players? Auerbach said, I can get guys from service teams. Okay. He gets all these guys. They were really good. They finished way ahead of everybody else. They lost one home game, the last home game of the season. and then they lost in the playoffs. And what happened during the season, he played 5 guys, and he played them, and he played them, and he wore them out, and he really didn't know what he was doing. Guys on the team said that they coached the team. Auerbach was lost. He'd scream at the referees and threaten the referees. He actually went into a referee locker room after a game and wanted to fight a referee. And he'd amp up the crowd and get the crowd going, but he was not a very good coach. And they got upset in the playoffs. One of the reasons they got upset was a Jewish referee, whose name I also can't remember, Messer something, was in league with gamblers. There were 2 referees who were kicked out of the NBA for taking money with from gamblers. He was one, and a guy named Saul Levy was another one, a couple of years later. 2 Jews. So Auerbach learned the game, and he learned the game, and he learned the game. He became a pioneer. He started more black players than was kosher. At one point, he started 5 black players. And everybody kind of freaked out and kept on winning and winning and winning. But he was a gnarly guy. He was really a gnarly guy. I did a story on him once. He loved to have his name in the papers. It's pictures and pictures and stuff like that. But he wasn't really that great a coach. He was really good at bringing guys, shaping a team. This guy can fit this role, this guy can fit that role, this guy can fit that role. He didn't teach. He wasn't a teacher. But he did change the game, revolutionize the game in 1956 when Bill Russell joined the team in the middle of the season because he had played the Olympics in Australia. And he wanted too much money, and the Hawks, St. Louis Hawks are going to draft. It's a whole story, but it's a very racist city, and they didn't want black people and black players in St. Louis, so he made a trade. He came to Boston, and Auerbach figured out the 24-second clock was two years old, and nobody knew what to do with the 24-second clock. You play, and there's 5 seconds left to go. You give the ball to your best player and say, "Here, do something." But Auerbach with Russell, who turned a block shot from an accident into an art form, he used to average 10, 12 block shots a game. They didn't keep track of them in those days. And he brought the NBA into the modern game.
And then Wilt came along and caused a great rivalry. And
Yes.
kind of made it a TV sport.
Yes, yeah. Well, Wilt, that was another thing. Gottlieb was then president. You should just stand here, Al. Gottlieb was
We could talk for a long time.
was the president of the Philadelphia team, and he had success with Joe Folks the first year, who led the league in scoring like 10 points more than the guy who came second. And he thought that the way to win, the way to promote, is have a guy score a lot of points and a lot of points, and that'll bring the fans in. And Wilt came in, and I played against Wilt once. Played against him once. Here's another tangent, but it was in the Knight Center in the Bronx, run by a guy named Floyd Lane, who was on that City College team, one of the fixers. Game started at midnight, it was during the week. Place was packed with school-aged black kids. Midnight it started, at school the next day. And I was the only white person in the gym. I was like the big white hope in those days. You know, I had a pretty good career in college. So Will's not there, and we're playing a whole bunch of guys you never heard of. Durango, Junior Martin, guys, you know, known only in and then Wilt comes in. And he comes in with 4 gorgeous women trailing him. You know, like a mother duck with a little chicks behind him. Here comes Wilt. One of them has his sneakers. He takes his shirt off. He's wearing his long pants. comes onto the court, I'm guarding him. You know, one of those things, if you could light a match on his breath, the Bronx would explode. I says, I'm 6'8", he was like 7'1" and a fraction. And you know, who was stronger, him or Shaq? It's close. He was pretty strong. He weighed like 310 pounds, 350, but muscle, not a fat. He was a great athlete. He said, okay, big guy, you do whatever you want. You can foul me, you can do whatever you want. Okay. So he got the balls, I grabbed him, he lifted me off the ground. I tried pushing him, it was like pushing a wall. And he's playing around. At one point in the game, I was a pretty good shooter. I hit like a 25-foot jump shot. And all the kids go, whoa! And Wilt was like, under the basket. I'll go by myself. So the next time down here, I'm going to do this again. He's also under the basket. I go off for the shot, boom! Hits me on the side of the head. He blocked it. Hits me on the side of the head, knocks me on the floor. That's my Wilt Chamberlain story.
What happened with the poor girl?
They were probably numbered among the 60,000,
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Probably numbered, well, I got a lot of Wilt stories. Wilt was famous for, I'm going off, is this okay? 2 minutes. 2 minutes. We played against Yeshiva, and get questions, we played against Yeshiva when I was in college. Played for Hunter College, which is now Lehman College in the Bronx. They were pretty good. They were coached by Red Sarachek, who taught Red Auerbach. He was the guy who taught Red Auerbach and taught Red Holzman. I knew Red Holzman. So most of the guys in the yeshiva team were yarmulkes, held in place with bobby pins. One point, they beat us my sophomore year, then we beat them 2 years after that. One point, a key point in the game, like we're in a fast break or something, and there's one guy back, yeshiva, and his yarmulke falls off. So instead of playing defense, he bends down, he picks up his yarmulke, he scored the basket.
What's your best Phil Jackson story since you're getting one here?
Most of them can't be said in public. I was his roommate for 3 years. Gee. I'll tell one story, which is okay. I was watching a Knick practice, and they were doing a 3-man weave drill. You start in the middle, you pass, you know, he comes to the middle, it's just a weave, you know, up and down the court, and the last guy scores a layup. So they come down the court, the pass goes to Phil, and then he's supposed to make the pass to the guy who shoots the layup, okay? Instead of catching the pass, he turns around, bounces it off his ass, right into the guy's hand. That's Phil. Phil stories. Phil stories that are publishable. Going into Canada. There's a team in Toronto. We're in Albany. I would drive in a van. We used to drive in a van from Albany to Toronto. All the guys in the back, we used to have a shoot around in the morning, turn the heat up so they all go to sleep, and listen to the music that we wanted, Grateful Dead, or sometimes bluegrass music. So we get to the border to, the inspector, he stops us, and he shines the light, and he looks in the back, he sees like 10 black guys sleeping, and 2 white guys in the front. So he says to Phil, they didn't know anything about basketball. He says to Phil, what is this? What are you doing? And Phil says, I'm smuggling slaves into Canada. That was Phil. That was Phil. Enough questions? Yes?
Yeah, let's take some
Yes,
questions.
You mentioned Nat Holman as a great Jewish basketball player. Who were a couple of other
you might consider the greatest Jewish basketball players in.
Dolph Shays was the
All
greatest.
shades of the greatest?
Yes, absolutely great. There's a couple of stories in here about me and Dolph. So the story is about the history of the game, but also some of my connections with some of these guys, with Dolph, and also some crazy stuff about when I went to Israel with the U.S. Maccabi team in '61. Shays was by far the greatest, soft guy, sweet guy, but tough. I must say, in all these, I played against him and Oscar Robertson and Ray Barry and a lot of NBA players, and I played all over the place. One time, the only time I had in playing basketball, any anti-Semitic remark presented to me was in a city league in Middletown, New York, the championship game. And the center on the other team was a guy named Jim Brownlee, who coached the high school and came from Seton Hall. He was about 6'5". So we're both crouched for the jump ball to open up the game, and he says, "You Jew bastard." So instead of going for the ball, I went, "Phew!" And I missed him by about this much. And I have mixed emotions about that. That I got probably better off for both of us that I missed him. But seriously, that's the only time that I was ever confronted with anything like that. I came from the Bronx, Half the Jews in the world are Bronx, Brooklyn. Somebody else. Yes, sir.
2 questions.
Yeah.
So when did, you said at the beginning that it was a passing game. So when did dribbling come in? And then second question is, what do you think about the NBA now?
When did dribbling come in? It first started when the pros allowed a two-handed dribble. Interrupted. Bounce, bang, bounce, smash, bounce, and smash. So the game was like that for a while. And then it kind of stopped that. So that was the late teens, early 20s. What do I think of basketball now? I think it's a circus. I spoke to Bob Cousy a couple of weeks ago for a project I have in mind. He says the NBA is a effing circus. I agree. I've spoken to coaches, NBA players, they all say the same thing. They come down on a 4-on-1 fast break and the guy shoots a 25-foot jump shot. What is that? It's you can't develop any continuity in your offense. Long shots lead to long rebounds, which means the other team is on a fast break. Dunk shots, everybody loves dunk shots. There are more dunk shots these days because there's no big guy protecting the basket. And kids don't know how to play. Kids know how to play one-on-one. Boom, 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 boom. Harden does that. LeBron does that. LeBron, I always say, forget about the MVP, he should get the Heisman Trophy Award, the way he plays. Smashing guys, they let him get away with murder. And Kyrie Irving didn't want to play with him because when LeBron's team wins, LeBron is the greatest, King James. When they lose, it's somebody else's fault. So guys don't want to play. Guys don't want to play with him. So for many, many years, for Fox Sports and NBA.com and this and that, I covered basketball and did 5 games a week or something. I basically stopped watching. I think altogether I watched maybe 1 quarter here, half there, a quarter there of the championship. I just can't stand it. The guys just don't know how to play. The referees let them do whatever they want. Harden catches the ball, 3 seconds, the 3-point lane is back there, he catches the ball, he goes boom, boom, and shoots. What is that?
Prima donnas. Prima donnas.
It's, because the fans want scores and more, and 120. I can't stand to watch the game. And again, believe me, there are a lot of NBA people who feel the same way, but that's the way it is. Yes?
Could you say, if there was a golden age or a time of basketball, what would you say?
Bulls, they played the game the right way. The triangle is beautiful. It's not outmoded, that's just nonsense. Sports writers who can't tell an X from an O, they say it's old fashioned. Players don't want to play it because you have to be unselfish. That's what killed, one of the things that killed Phil Jackson in New York. He signed Carmelo Anthony to a big contract because if they played the triangle, Melo would get the ball in what they call the elbow, with a foul line. The foul lane meets the foul line. This area here is called the elbow. He would get the ball at the elbow, be one dribble away from the basket, have a 15, 16-foot jump shot, and everybody be moving around. Defense would have a long way to come to double team him. He would have been a killer. But he didn't want to do it when it came down to it, because it meant he'd have to move around without the ball. He had to pass it and then go through and get it back again, and he had sticky fingers. He didn't want to get rid of the ball. So he undermined Jeff Hornacek, who's a wonderful guy, too nice a guy, but a real nice guy. He ruined Porzingis, turned Porzingis into a joke, into an arrogant kid who is not going to recover from his surgery. So that was one of the things that ruined Phil. But Chicago, you know, when everybody says, well, a triangle, you got to have Kobe, you got to have Michael, you got to have Pippen, you got to have Shaq. The year that Michael was playing baseball, the star of the team was Scottie Pippen, who wasn't a scorer. He was a facilitator. And they ran the triangle to perfection. I always tell Phil that's the best job he did coaching all the years he'd been in the NBA. And if it wasn't for the crazy foul that I can't think of the guy's name, that called against the Bulls, ridiculous call, they would have made the finals. And they played the triangle to perfection. It was beautiful to watch. He changed it a little bit with the Lakers because he had Shaq in there. You know, he throw the ball to Shaq. But Kobe never bought the triangle. He never, ever did. They almost had a fight, Shaq and Kobe. Kobe went to fight Shaq. And the guys in the team were Kobe. You don't want to do that, Kobe. Shaq said, come on.
How would you portray the relationship between Phil and Michael Jordan? Did Jordan listen to him, or did
The thing that drew them together was that the two of them were the most competitive people in the organization. And Phil, remember when he played in New York when Bill Bradley came, and that was like the beginning of the media's focus on New York and on the NBA. That's when it, you know, NBA basketball really became, like 30 reporters following the Knicks around. So he wasn't, you know, Clyde Frazier or Earl Pearl, he wasn't, Phil wasn't awed by Michael Jordan. They were both so competitive. Let me tell you two Michael Jordan stories to show how competitive he was. I have time to do this? The best shot I ever saw. Because I coached the Rockford Lightning, which is, what, 60 miles away from Chicago? You know that. You should.
Rockford?
Rockford?
Yeah, about that.
About that. So I used to come to their, you know, come to their games, come to my games. I used to go out to the coast with them, the early summer league, and I used to go, we had dibs on players that they drafted who didn't make the team. So it's the first day of scrimmage. First day of scrimmage. And one of the rookies was a guy named Matt Brust, who played for St. John's, like 6'5", good shooter, but like, you know, he's supposed to be this rough guy, this tough guy. Boy, is he tough. And all the rookies are like going crazy out there, and the veterans, the first day of practice, they're like running wide circles around these guys. Stay away from these guys. So there's one play, Michael steals the ball, and he's ahead of the field. And he's going in, and he doesn't see Brust charging up behind him, hits him from behind, wham, knocks Michael to the floor. Jerry Krause almost choked on his donut. That's how bad it was. Michael's lying there, oh my God, the season is over. He gets up, says, yeah, I'm okay, all right. About 3 or 4 plays later, same thing happens. Here's Michael, steals it, he's ahead of the field, here comes Brust. So picture this, here's this 6'5", what do you weigh, 210, 215? Big guy, big shouldered, strong guy. Jordan goes up on the right side of the basket with his right hand. Here comes Brust. While Michael's in the air, he goes, bang! Here's Brust in the face, knocks him out while he's in the air, shifts the ball to his left hand, comes around the other side of the basket, and dunks it.
Wow.
That's the best shot I ever seen. And Brust wouldn't play for me in Rockford. One more Michael story. There's a scrimmage. And the press wasn't allowed, but I was allowed. So Frank Phil's and the Rockford, blah, blah, blah. And the scrimmages used to get real intense. And it was Michael's team against Scotty's team. And they went at it. One of the reasons Doug Collins got fired is that he used to cheat in the scores so that Michael's team would lose. And freak Michael out. That was one of the reasons. There are a lot of reasons he got fired. So it comes down to, and they're beating each other up. They're playing like it's the 7th game of the championship series. Pippen, who wasn't a great shooter, hits like a 30-foot jump shot to win the game. Michael starts freaking out. He lost a scrimmage game in the practice. Here comes the media. They'll let them, hey, Michael. Hey. He starts screaming at him and cursing him, calling him every name in the book. And these guys are going, what the hell is going on here? That's why he was so great. That's why he was so great. And that's why he got along with Phil. Because Phil, I played Phil when I coached against him. We played one-on-one, full court. Must have played 150 times, 200 times. He was like, when we first started, 2 or 3 years away from the NBA, and I was about 20 years away from college ball. I was older than him, but I was stronger than him. But he was 100 times better than me. He was also younger than me. And we used to play, we used to go at it. But he'd do things, if I got a little too physical, I know his hip was, he had back surgery, so I lay off the hip. That was part of it. If I got a little too, he'd like throw an elbow and miss my nose by like a ½ inch. And I was like, Charlie, that's it. Don't, lighten up. So we're playing this one game, and I'm hitting shots, and I'm one basket away from winning. And he has the ball. These are one-on-one games that we've been playing, we played for 3 years wherever we went, whatever city we went. He beat me every time, beat me 150 times. So he's coming in, I knocked him down, smashed him into the wall, got the ball, dribbled down and scored. Game's over. I win. He said, Charlie, you found me. I said, Phil, you never lost a game in the NBA when referees didn't call foul? He didn't speak to me for about 5 hours. That's how competitive he was. And one more story, one game with me. I tell you, keep on going. We're snowed in Lexington, Kentucky, playing a team down there, the CBA. So I'm teaching him how to play casino. I'm playing for pennies. And I was a veteran of casino. I used to play when I was in college. We used to make money playing casino. We're playing for penny. And he had never played the game. So I knew to memorize, how many tens there were, how many aces there were. I memorized, so I kind of knew it. And I was beating him for like about 60 cents. And he just grabbed the cards and he just threw them down and started screaming at me. This game, stupid game, because he couldn't win. This is serious. I once played in Tiddlywinks. When we lived in New York in a loft on West 19th Street. We came and played Tiddlywinks, and I beat him, and he freaked out. Two more Phil stories.
All right, report.
Two more Phil stories. The CBA, first season we were there. Sometimes the two of us had a scrimmage. Somebody was hurt or something like that. There was a guy named David Magley, he was an All-American in Kansas, had played for the Cavaliers, had just cut from Cleveland, is playing and Phil's guarding him, and he's 6'7", this young guy just came from an NBA camp. He's in great shape, he's running up and down the court, he's beating Phil up and down the court, he's hitting shots and dunking. Phil was so pissed. He hit him deliberately. It's the second time I've seen him do it. Hit this guy, Magley, with a knee in the thigh. Put him out for the season. I saw him do the same thing in a playground game in Woodstock to a guy who was killed. I can tell stories.
Thank you all for coming. We do have books available that Charlie can sign, and we do have to be out of the building by 9.